At the moment, we're expecting snow and ice to be coming through. Initially, we were in the cold sector, but now we're starting to see some warmer air moving in from the south, and that's going to push those numbers down when it comes to snowfall, and ice is likely to start climbing. Now, the majority of this is going to be starting as we go into Saturday, probably midday, into the afternoon and evening. Then we get the heaviest snows after the sun sets. However, after you get past the sunset, we're also talking about that warmer air starting to nose its way in. How far does that warm air get? Well, that's something we can be talking about for the rest of our forecast and going into the weekend. As for the rest of this system behind it, it's going to get really cold, and we're expecting frigid temperatures to stay with us for several days as we enter the next week. I've been talking about it throughout the week, but we have cold air that's going to be coming in thanks to a cold front that moves through Friday afternoon and into the evening. That's what is the driving factor with all of this, of course, coming in. We need to have the cold air in place, or we're not going to see any snow, any ice, or anything. All the moisture starts piling up over the center of the country. Of course, the blue here is going to be your snow. Pink is the messy ice. That's freezing rain and sleet. Now, with this one, it looks like we're probably going to be talking a little bit more about sleet than freezing rain. That can be good news. It means probably less power outages, but we're still likely to see a lot of that sleet collecting on the ground. As you go into Saturday afternoon and evening, this system is pushing towards the east. We have this large swath of pink developing. That's going to be the ice potential. Issue is, how far does that warm air get? What's happening is with snow, of course, you have below freezing temperatures top to bottom in the atmosphere. But when you start talking about ice, it's because there's warm air that's above the ground. Here at the ground, we could be 0 degrees. We could be 10 degrees. Doesn't matter. But if the temperatures at 10,000 feet above you start getting above freezing, that's going to start melting that snow. And that's what drives this icing potential that we have with this storm system. We have a little layer of warm air, and that's melting enough of that snow to allow for some of this to turn into ice, whether it be freezing rain when it gets to the ground or it turns back into sleet, which right now it looks like that's what we're going to be dealing with, is pretty widespread sleet, especially into the south side. So going into early Sunday morning, the snow still trying to fall, but we're starting to see a mix forming as well. Notice how close we are to that blue and pink. If we start seeing the sleet become more dominant, we're going to see those snow totals stop almost entirely, but we're likely to see some higher totals for snowfall very close to that line. So if you're towards the highlands, moving up towards the Charlottesville area, even up towards Pennsylvania, that's where most of this snow is likely to be falling. Higher totals there, while further south, you're dealing with more ice. Freezing rain also becomes more likely the further south you get. But sleet, again, is likely our biggest culprit with this system. That low pressure will be moving off to the east throughout the rest of the forecast. By the time you get into Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening, that's when we're finally starting to see this system moving away from us, and you should be able to start drying back out, probably by Monday morning. I think we're lingering with a few areas still of some drizzle. So how could this play out? Well, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that these models that we look at are actually showing things to work. At the moment, this is one showing us where we have a little more sleet, a little more ice over the south side, and this knocks off our totals. This is one that we were watching very closely earlier this week that was showing a lot higher totals. Some of you probably saw some of these numbers where we were getting 18 inches, 20 inches of snow. This is the same model that was showing that on Monday. But then we started to see a change, and this low pressure was moving a little too far north. That meant warmer air and less snow, more ice. Consequently, we have lower totals, especially for areas like the south side. Still a decent snowfall before it turns to snow, but before it turns to ice, but we're dealing with both of them. And this is kind of what we might end up looking at. We see higher ice for the south side, and that even travels further north too. How much of this is going to be a mix of either freezing rain or sleet? Still kind of figuring that out. But most of us, I think, are more likely to be seeing sleet. We could be dealing with about a 1/4 inch of ice trying to accrue on some surfaces. That's not going to be area-wide. This is almost a worst-case scenario when it comes to freezing rain. It's more likely we're going to get higher totals for sleet. That's going to mix in with the snowfall, which also gets measured. Now, here's another run, a different model that's showing us the same kind of event, but this one doesn't see that warm air come in. It thinks that we're just dealing with cold air. So without that warm nose that melts the snow and turns it into sleet, that's when you start seeing totals like this. But most of the consistencies that we've seen in the last couple of days have been steering away from this kind of a solution. We're seeing less of the high-end totals, and we're seeing more ice and less snow. And so something like this is probably less likely. It's still something that's on the table that we'll be watching for in case, but until this storm system actually really develops as we go into tomorrow, moving into Friday, and getting into Saturday, that's when we'll have a real clear idea of where this system is going and how it might actually impact us as we head out onto the roads. I do think right now your biggest concern is definitely going to be the roads as you go out Sunday and early Monday. That's when the worst of this system will be happening or has happened. The roads will likely be at their worst. They haven't been cleared or they're trying to clear them, and it just takes a while. With a system like this, we have a lot of snow that's going to be falling first. Then we have that freezing rain and sleet on top of it. That's going to create crusty layers on top of snow. Doesn't really feel great. Sounds kind of cool when you're stepping on it, but we do expect that ice to be a problem on the roads as well, especially if we're talking about ½ to an inch of sleet that's getting added on the roads. That's essentially ice pellets, and that's not going to melt as easily as snow would. You can still clear it, but when you have a lot of it, it does make it a little more difficult, and it does freeze a little faster with other pellets. And you think about putting a bunch of ice into a bowl, and then you freeze that bowl. That's going to freeze a lot quicker than just melting snowflakes. Now, also watching for power outages. That's a possibility, but it's more likely you deal with power outages when we start dealing with freezing rain. And like I said, this is mostly sleet, mostly snow. Thankfully, freezing rain potential is going to be more of a problem to our south. Wind gusts would also be knocking down a lot of those trees. So far, it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing a lot of the higher wind gusts. I think for the next 24 hours or so, we'll be keeping an eye to see if that is supposed to change. But right now, 15 to 20 miles an hour seems like the worst of it. We should be able to start drying back out by Monday. Cold temperatures will continue. We're still expecting it to be in the teens for a while. Rest of next week also going to be cold. I know this is definitely the worst of our weather that we're seeing in the next couple of days. However, next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, struggling to get back up above freezing. Might not get back to freezing until Wednesday. So we'll see how much this snow and ice can stick around, because if temperatures are not warming above freezing, we could be down to 0 as we go into Monday night and Tuesday. So we're still expecting roads to be pretty bad Monday and Tuesday. Even if they are getting cleared, there's still going to be runoff and things freezing and refreezing for a while. And that's going to mean this could go on for a bit, even though the system is done by the time we get into Monday morning. And again, I know this is a lot to throw at you. We've got a lot of different changes that can still be happening. We're still monitoring the potential for that warmer air to moving over us. How much snow could we get? We're still expecting you should plan for accumulating snow with ice following it as you go into Sunday morning. This means roads are going to be pretty bad on Sunday. If you need to get some prep done, you need to go shopping, I suggest doing that Thursday and Friday. Both days, all right, not a lot to worry about weather-wise. But then as we go into Saturday, conditions will deteriorate as you go into the afternoon and the evening. But yeah, go ahead and have your plan ready to go. George and I will be updating you throughout the next couple of days. And of course, we'll be here throughout the weekend with the very latest. For now, I'm meteorologist Thomas Battle for ABC 13. Thanks for joining us, and stay safe.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the ABC 13 YouTube page so that you can watch more videos from ABC 13.